Hi everyone, welcome back to this YouTube video series on how to delete the ego. This is part 4. If you haven't watched the other parts, all the links are below for that. So part 4, we're going to be talking about how the ego is fed. In the previous video, part 3, we talked about the mind and the process of the ego. So how the ego actually attaches itself to the mind and how that starts creating belief systems for us. And that's literally how the ego survival works. In this video, like I said, we're going to talk about how the ego gets fed, and this is what we're going to be talking about here. This is really, really important. This is a big one, how the ego gets fed, because it actually tells us that we have the power to change this. We have the power to decide what we are exposing ourselves to and what we're not. This is what we're going to delve into a little bit more now. Before we move on, it's important to know something. I don't think I highlighted it enough, but I really want to make that point that remembering that your trauma body is not you. It's not an identification of you. We talked about how the ego comes in and it identifies itself with the mind. And because the mind is, it spreads itself across the body because it's connected to the body, then the trauma body comes through in these old patterns that you're in. But it's really important to know you are not your trauma body. You are not the trauma body. Your behaviors are not you. It's really important to understand that you do not need to identify yourself with that, because that's not actually how it works, even though the ego wants you to do that, right? Because it's there only, as I said, for fear and survival. The other thing to note as well is that even though, we're talking about this course, this is all about deleting the ego, dissolving the ego. What we really need to understand as well about the ego is that even though we keep on working on the ego, we delete this ego more and more as we find the self-love, which is what we're going to come to more and more, which is basically kind of how it works, through the heart, as we've said before. What we need to also understand is that the ego is going to keep doing its thing. The ego is going to keep coming in. So don't think just because you've dealt with one part of your life, that means that the other part will be good enough. There are different angles to this. So the ego will go to one, and if that doesn't work, it's going to go to another part. So the ego is going to keep on going until we train the ego properly. So that's what we're going to talk about further on in the course. Now, the other thing that I just want to explain is, if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. You have to know yourself. You have to know for a fact that you are actually safe. If you don't know that you are safe, if you still believe you are unsafe, even your mind thinking you still believe that you're not safe, then this is not going to work for you. You have to know for a fact that you're actually safe. When trauma happens, it makes you believe that you're not safe, and that's when the ego comes in, because it's now believing, you are in fear and survival. You need to know you are no longer in fear and survival. There is no survival now. There is no more fear. But if you still believe you are still in fear, if you still believe that there's still fear coming for you, and that the rest of your life you're going to be living in fear, and there's going to be more traumas, more issues coming in, and this is not going to work for you. So you have to know you are actually no longer in fear and survival for this to work. Okay, so what we're going to now go into is how the ego gets fed. How does the ego actually get fed? This is what we really want to know. This is the feeding of the unconscious, which is the ego, right? The main thing here is to understand that we have lived and still are living in a matrix system. And in this matrix system, it is built only for your thought mind. It is really built completely for your mind, and therefore the ego that comes in to build all these stories, like we've said. So what it comes down to is that it gets fed through the matrix system. But what we're going to do, we're going to break it down into different ways. Before we move on to any more delving in deep into understanding not just the matrix, but how the ego actually gets fed, I'm going to ask you a question to think about. How do you believe you are feeding the egoic mind in your life? Start noticing this. How are you feeding the egoic mind? Start taking notice of these moments where you see yourself feeding the egoic mind, thinking about what we talked about. The egoic mind is the fear and survival, is what it believes that you are still in fear and survival. So it continues with the stories, continues with these belief systems, continues with this overthinking, whatever it is. So how in your life are you noticing that you are feeding the egoic mind? What things maybe around you have you got in your life, in your environment, that is feeding the egoic mind? How are you doing this? Okay, so we know, we just talked about it is the matrix, okay? It's our environment, it's the matrix, it's the energies, it's the vibration that's around us that keeps feeding it, right? So I've said this before, we are all made out of vibration. We are all vibrational frequency. We are a vessel and we attract frequencies to us. This is kind of how it works. So if everything's vibration, we are affected by everything else that's vibration, right? So not only people, not only situations, but so much more that the matrix again has focused on the egoic mind. So some of the things, the matrix, of course, being the shoulds, this box, this structure that we've been in, the rules, the policies, the laws, and all this stuff, right? The restrictions, right? That's part of it. It's very, very mind focused. So the other part of the matrix is very mind focused, and this is what we're going to be going in a bit more now, is media and your devices. I have put a video out there, and I'll put a link below, on some particular way how the vibration actually works and what we're picking up vibrationally when we are on our phones, let's say. Okay, so I'm going to put a link below and you can watch that if you want. Media, so many things, movies, even music. Like when I'm talking about media, I'm talking about anything you can think of, any kind of form that goes through technology that you are affected by. So it could be music, movies, what you're watching, TV shows, of course, TV, news, of course, one of the worst things ever that affects us, puts us in fear and survival, right? Social media, any kind of media you can think of. I've also added, so apart from media, what we are actually doing on our devices. So it can be as simple as a news article. Your friend sends a news article and then you look at even reading a news article. There you go. Now your mind goes back to some kind of egoic fear, okay? Because remember, this is what I'm trying to say, in media and all this and through your device, the matrix wants you to keep staying in that fear and survival. So they are going to do everything they can to keep you in that state, right? The other thing that I really want to mention is video games as well. Video games, movies. Again, we've talked about movies, what kind of movies you're watching, all this kind of stuff. There are so many things. Obviously, going on your phone, it can be anything, going on even your computer for a while, whatever it is, all these stuff. And the reason being is because we, again, are made out of vibration. All this stuff is coming through a lower vibrational frequency. And not just the fact that it is coming through a low vibrational frequency, but it's sending specific messages that we're not aware of, potentially. Or if you are, then that really helps as well, the process. So we are vessels. We pick signals up all the time. As you are going through this consciousness journey, you are going to notice that more and more. If we are not still quite awake to that, then we're going to get to that more and more. But it's about putting that in practice now. It's about being aware of this now. What you are exposing yourself to is feeding the ego when it comes to the matrix. So you have to decide what is right for you and what isn't right for you, right? Okay, so I'm going to ask another question. What do you notice from the matrix that is feeding the egoic mind? So we've talked about before what you feel like is feeding your egoic mind, so you can consider that. Now, specifically, what do you notice from the matrix that is feeding the egoic mind? So, for example, if you do play video games, are you noticing what's happening to your mind after? Are you noticing how you're feeling after, right? All this little stuff. What are you noticing about this? Right, now we're going to go a little bit deeper as to how media, how your device works, and how this is having an effect on you, and how it's actually affecting the egoic mind and is feeding all the fear that's coming up for you. What we need to understand is, first of all, we talked about vibration. We know that it brings a lower vibration frequency and then it affects us and puts us in that frequency, right? We know that because through our phones, and I have said this in this video that I'll put a link below, that what is coming through these devices are frequencies, right? Because we're all made out of frequencies, and there are certain frequencies that are mind-controlled frequencies, mind-level thinking frequencies that are of a lower level, and it's coming through, and we are watching it or listening to it, whatever it is. But the other thing is about our device is that because it's mind level thinking, with whatever comes through to the phone, whether it's an article it doesn't have to be a news article, it could be any kind of article, right? Because it's that, what's also happening is putting the vibration comes through as a separateness. There's a separateness in the vibrational frequency that's coming through our devices. Now, what that means is that it puts us in that separateness. I've said this before, when we are in dissonance, we are in some kind of separateness within ourselves. That means our cells now are in more separate mode rather than within and together as a whole. When we're in resonance, it's everything. We have it all within us, and we're now in peace. So what I'm saying is that the vibration that's coming out of these devices keeps us in separateness mode, keeps us in dissonance. But the other part to this is, and this is just life full stop, and it's done on purpose, but when we're on our phone, we are actually looking at something from outside of us. So what's happening is that we start believing that in this interaction, because that's actually how it works, we are interacting with something outside of us, whether it's a phone or obviously anything else. But in this interaction with us and our phones, we are now believing or training ourselves in a way, conditioning ourselves to believe that something outside of us can actually feed us, can actually, let's say in another way, make us feel whole, make us whole again, make us feel complete again. So we're conditioning ourselves to believe that something outside of us, as we're interacting with our phones, does actually make us feel happy, basically, make us get to the happy place we need. And then, we can go into all the hormones and all the chemicals behind that as well. But that's also what's going on. It's making you believe that something outside of you can make you actually happy, because there's a separateness to that as well. So now, the other thing that I want to mention is that not only is it a lower vibrational frequency, like we said, but it also depends on what and who you're listening to. So the messages, for example, if the messages are of a higher vibrational frequency, so it's a light and it's high frequency, it's obviously generally better, right? You feel that it's good vibrational light energy frequency that you're getting, which is really, really more helpful, let's say, even though it's still going through a low vibrational mind thinking energy, right? But who you're listening to and the messages you are listening to really make a difference as well. So just being aware of that. So what are you listening to? Who are you listening to? The person, the vibration of the person behind these messages. So if you're watching, let's say, a YouTube video or something, right? The vibration of the person behind the messages and, who this person is, what they're saying, is also going to have an effect. If they have a low vibration, you are going to feel that, because again, we are vessels and we get affected. And what's happening there is that we are picking up on that person's energy. So what happens is that we're actually picking up on that person's fear. We're picking up on that person's ego, and that's going into us. And without realizing, we start almost putting ourselves in that vibration as well, but we're not aware of that. So you have to be aware of who you're listening to and what you're watching as well. Okay, so we talked about the messages too. So movies are a great example of that. Obviously, TV shows, same thing. There are messages that are being fed through that. And one of the things that, because I guess, I want to make a point that, yes, we have to obviously limit what we're watching, using our devices. Absolutely, that's going to make a massive difference, and it really, really does. It really makes a massive difference, and being aware of who and what we're watching. But also, if you are going to watch something, we're going to talk about timings and everything later, but if you are going to watch something, thinking about the messages, be aware of how you're watching it. It's about how you are watching something. Usually what happens is that we really engage in what we're watching. We almost take it quite seriously. We really want to go in and really watch the story properly. And, if you think about a movie, watch the movie all the way through, look at what it wants to say to us, get involved with our emotions, so get our emotions involved in it, so we're really engaged in it, right? What I'm saying is be aware of that. Start almost disengaging more from when you're watching something. When you're watching something, almost lean back and almost, I want to say, laugh at it. I'm being told, like, laugh at it. Yeah, relax, relax into it, and don't take it so seriously, and don't engage in it. It's the engagement in it that is actually making it worse for us. See it for what it is. Watch the messages. Watch out for the messages that are coming through, and just watch it like, isn't that interesting? They're doing that. That's funny. Don't engage, don't take it seriously, don't put your energy in it, basically. If you are going to be watching something, be aware of that. Okay. Now, the other thing, of course, we've probably heard before is that when we go on our devices, it really acts like a distraction. Yes, it does. What's going on is it actually blocks our growth. This is why it's so important to really restrict this in your life. It is blocking your growth. What's happening is that, like we said, the energy is the mind thinking energy that comes in through your devices, or whatever you're watching, whatever you're listening to. And actually watching is like an extra level, because you can listen to something and you're affected by it, but when you're also watching it, it's like double whammy. Now it's got you even more, right? So there's like different senses that you are being affected by now, different senses going on within you. So just be aware of that too. But it is blocking your growth. It's keeping the mind energy going, the mind thoughts going, because remember, it's all through the mind. They focus on the mind. That's how they do it, to keep you in that egoic state. And what that means is that it keeps you away from your feelings. When we are not connected to our feelings, we are not growing. We are not doing our personal development work. We are not doing the internal work. We are not growing. We're not alchemizing within ourselves the way we need to. So it keeps us in block. It keeps us in numb mode, right? So be aware of how that's going on, and why, again, it's so important to restrict this as much as possible in your life. Okay, so we talked about that. The other thing to be aware of, it has, because of the vibrational mind focused energy of the low vibration, it keeps you, it might make you feel quite ungrounded, quite nervous, quite, it might bring that anxiety up within you, disconnected to yourself. So watch out for that as well. The thing that I want to highlight here as well is that what's actually going on when we're watching things, when we're exposing ourselves to these type of things from the Matrix, and this is done on purpose, it places a certain reality in your mind that is not true, but because it places that certain reality in your mind, you now start living your life to some degree in that type of reality. That is a concern, because what reality we have within us is what we're going to bring in our lives, right? So you have the power to change your reality. If you want to actually build the right reality for yourself, that is for your highest timeline, your higher self, then you need to be aware of how this is actually going for you and how this is affecting you, because it's building a reality for you in your mind to make you believe a certain reality that's actually not true. It's actually not true. The reality that's true for you comes from your heart, not from your mind. It doesn't work that way. So it gets distorted, and it keeps on bringing in more blocks for you in terms of blocks for your growing. So what's going on is that there's an unconscious trying to feed the subconscious fears. So the unconscious is trying to feed, when I say subconscious, your fears. So what's happening is, as you're exposing yourself to these devices, media, whatever it is, there is an unconscious in that. There's an unconscious vibration that comes in. If you think about, even everyone has got some unconsciousness in them. So if you're listening to certain people, you're still bringing unconscious in. If you're watching movies, TV shows, there's an unconsciousness in that, in the vibration, the messages that are coming through, right? And what's happening is that it's feeding the subconscious, which are your fears. So it's keeping you again in that fear and survival. But what you need to do is start noticing how your body feels. Start putting some practice in from now in terms of connecting to your body. When you're more connected to your body, you start understanding how your body should feel when you are at peace and calm within your body. If you don't know what peace and calm and safety is, you're not going to understand when you can maybe listen to something or when maybe you shouldn't, right? If you know what doesn't feel safe within your body, then you know it's not right for you. So start connecting to your body now. It's going to be your body and your mind thinking that's going to know these answers. So as I said before, it's about how you watch the media, how you watch anything. How do you watch it? Start noticing, how are you watching movies, even if it's news, whatever. How are you watching or listening to it? How are you watching or listening to things? It's about how you're doing it that's going to help you in this process, and of course restricting it as well. I'm going to ask some questions now for you to consider. How do you feel after watching media or using your device? So we talked about, how does your body feel? For example, do you feel ungrounded? Do you feel disconnected? How do you feel after you watch anything? Do you keep thinking about the media more after you watch it? So if you're watching a movie, let's say, do you keep on going back to the story of the movie? Do you keep rethinking the movie? Oh, that was interesting. Then that happened. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. Whatever the thoughts are, do you still think about the movie? Well, that's how they get you. So now you definitely were engaged in it, and now it's got you, and now it keeps you in that mind thinking ego, right? Now, the other question I want to ask is your reality now becoming the reality of your exposure? Start noticing this. Is your reality now becoming the reality of what you're exposing yourself to? For example, we talked about, even if you're maybe, your friend sends, even you get messages, right? You're still using your phone. So there's a vibration there that you're getting through your body, through your mind, ego, and it goes through your body. So even using your phone, even for sending messages to friends. But imagine your friend sends you some kind of article. Maybe it's not a news article, but it's some kind of article, right? Nothing major. You read it, you're listening to it. Now you're reading it and you're engaged in it. Has that now maybe for the rest of the day become your reality? We talked about movies. Does the movie then become your reality? How is it now affecting you? So start noticing this in your life. So let's go into a little bit more as to restrictions, right? So we talked about how you can watch it. That's one tip that you can use. How you're watching something, not engaging into it, not engaging in it, which is going to make a difference. The other thing is timings. When are you watching things? When are you exposing yourself to any kind of device media, right? First thing in the morning, your body is not ready to go there. Your body is not ready for any kind of mind thinking ego, right? I mean, never really is ever, but especially in the morning, your body is coming up to its natural rhythm. It wants to go into its natural rhythm. Relaxing, doing something light for yourself in the morning, taking your time is going to make a difference, right? The first thing in the morning, going on your phone is not a wise decision to make. If you are doing that, start taking notice of a day when you are doing it and a day that you're not doing it, and start noticing the difference of how your body feels or what you're noticing in the mind egoic thoughts that are coming up between the days. Also, nighttime, one of the worst times ever, because it's like imagination overload at nighttime. Your imagination just goes wild at night. So that's going to really feed the egoic mind thinking as well. Again, give that a go. What do you notice in the morning? Let's say when you first get up the next day after you went on your phone, the night before, does your body feel more ungrounded than usual? Do you feel a bit more disconnected? How do you feel the next day? And start experimenting with that in your life. Start making the experiment so you can see the difference that's actually making in your life, and therefore you can start making the right choices for you. Remember, the matrix wants your energy to keep feeding the system, right? There is a supply and demand here. So if you decide that you want to you still want to feed the system because you want the matrix system to carry on, then perfect. You carry on with going on your device, exposing yourself to this thing. So you're building this reality of fear and survival in your life now as well. So you're going to keep the matrix system going. Or do you decide to not be part of the system and go, no, thank you. I'm going to do what's right for me. I'm going to do what's right for my higher self. So be aware of the choices here that you're making. There is a demand and supply here. You know, if there's a demand for something, then it's going to get sold, right? If there isn't, then it's going to stop. It's as simple as that. So just be aware of that too. I hope that was useful. I think this is a really big topic. You know, if you don't feel like it is in your life, you notice it is, you know, you've done the experiments and you can't see that it's the media devices that are making a difference, then start going into what else do you believe is feeding the ego? Because it could be many other things. I mean, I know there are signals I've been told around the earth that we're not aware of, that we're also being affected by, so what else do you believe? What else have you noticed could be feeding the egoic mind for you? So there could be several other things as well that we haven't talked about, but this is a really big one that I think we really need to be aware of, because we absolutely have so much power over what we choose and what we can change in this. So the next video or two is going to be now exactly how we can start putting this into practice. So how do we start the process of how we delete the egoic mind? How can we start deleting that? This is going to come down to training yourself to know that you're actually safe. But there's a whole process, the whole technique that I'm going to explain in that. So yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.